And all right, we are ready. Welcome to the Justice Committee's next webinar. This is entitled Legal Aid Service of Collier County, Ensuring Equal Justice for All. My name is Sharon Harris Ewing. I am the Assistant Minister at Naples United Church of Christ, and I am the person who has the privilege of working with our Justice Committee, and it's that committee that has planned this evening for us. Our speaker is Cathy Lucrezi. Am I saying that close to correct?
It's close. It's close. Lucrezi.
Lucrezi. All right. Thank you. And Cathy is a supervising attorney with Legal Aid Service of Collier County. She's been an attorney for 35 years and has mostly been with nonprofit law firms, providing legal assistance to low-income individuals, and has expertise in the area of housing law, defending evictions and foreclosures, housing discrimination, and public housing rights. And she also takes on cases involving public benefits. She's conducted seminars for lawyers and judges and social service providers, client groups, and professional associations, and now a church group. Maybe she's done other church groups too, I don't know. But we are very glad, and some of us have had the wonderful opportunity to already talk with Cathy and hear a little about what she's doing. And I want to give her as much time as possible, and I'm going to let her tell you about legal aid and what they do. So without any further introduction, Cathy, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. And as I've told you, we'll listen for a while, and at the end we'll have some time for Q&A. We ask those of you who are watching if you would put the Q&A in the Q&A section there. If you have any technical problems or anything, that you can also contact me via chat. But all right, welcome, Cathy. Let's get started.
Thank you very much. As introduced, I'm Cathy Lucrezi, and I hope that when you heard our coordinator say that I've been practicing for 35 years. I hope you all said, oh my goodness, she looks so young. But I can assure you it's 35 years. And before being a lawyer, I was a school teacher. And the thread that's common through all of that is I really like being the center of attention. I like being up and being the one talking and all that. So getting the opportunity to do presentations like this is great, although I gotta say, I do miss having a real audience. I'm just gonna imagine that as we go through this, if I make a joke, I can hear you laughing. I'm gonna pretend that you're nodding your head in great amazement with all the words of wisdom I have. So don't bust my bubble here.
Oh, that's fine.
Legal Aid Service of Collier County is a law firm. It's really as simple as it gets. We're a nonprofit law firm. We don't charge fees to our clients. If a person is eligible for our services, they pay no attorney's fees. We do ask them to pay for any court costs that come up. And we can usually kind of work with that a little bit, but it's a way that people who can't afford to hire a private attorney can get an attorney to help them with a lawsuit. There's a lot in our legal system that is designed for people to help themselves. Small claims court has evolved over the years to where just about anybody can fill out some forms and boom, you're in court. And there's a lot of great things out there on the internet to help people represent themselves, but there's no substitute for having some legal advice before you go in, before you start to pay money to file a case. And certainly if the other side of a dispute has an attorney, you've got to have one. It's just an uneven playing field otherwise. I think some people have the vision of our justice system working kind of like a Judge Judy court, where if you just go in and explain what happened, some decision will be made about what's fair. And what I often tell clients is, it's not even a matter of fairness. It's a matter of what the law is and what the judge thinks the law is for that particular day. So it's the difference between reality and what we're led to believe in fantasy and television is very different. I'm going to share my screen so I can show a PowerPoint presentation. So give me a minute while I fumble with that.
All right.
Okay, okay, there we are. So the people that work at legal aid, I would have to say pretty much 100% of the people on our staff are committed to this idea that we have an obligation to our community to represent people who otherwise don't have access. We don't ever present ourselves as being, agents of change, that we're out there, doing the civil disobedience stuff or whatever. Instead, we look at this as a case-by-case basis. We help individuals find their own empowerment and make their own changes in their lives. And through that, I believe we make a better, stronger community for everybody. We serve all of Collier County. A great number of our clients are in Naples. A great number are in Immokalee. And then, there's a lot of rural areas of Collier County that I think we often don't think of. We have an office in Naples. We have an office in Immokalee that your organization has graciously helped us expand some of our services there, and that's really wonderful. But looking at the map with the zip codes and stuff like that, it just reminds you that there are some places, and some places in Collier County, I can't even pronounce the names, but they too have all the same legal problems that everybody else does. Well, I shouldn't say the same, because there is a different flavor to the legal problems that arise between what happens within the city of Naples and what happens in the rural parts of Collier County. And I'll get into more detail with that as we go. Last year, we served almost 3,000 households. That's a great number, but it's not enough. There are a whole lot more out there that are waiting for help. I do lots of these talks to different groups, and I especially like getting a chance to talk to people who provide services to others, because to me, it's like a multiplier. If I talk to this group of 20, let's say, each of you knows 20 other people, and so to the extent that you can say, hey, you've got a problem, you can call legal aid. So there's a lot of households out there that we still have to reach. And I always get amazed when somebody will contact us and say, well, gee, I didn't know you were there. And it's like, how can you not know? We've been here for a very long time. And we're always out in front. Besides me, there's about 22 other attorneys, and I want to say about an equal number of support staff. And I'm pretty sure my numbers are wrong about that, but it's a large group of people, and everybody, although everybody has their own little area of expertise, everybody is out there saying, here we are. I might have this little specialty, but we have lots of people on staff to cover lots of different areas of the law. To give you kind of an overview of how we're organized, Legal Aid Service of Collier County is actually a subsidiary of Legal Aid Service of Broward County, Inc. Obviously, we don't call ourselves Legal Aid Service of Broward County here in Collier, because it would be very misleading. But that's kind of our mother organization. So from Broward County to Collier County, and then our Collier County program has a managing attorney, Carol O'Callahan, which I think some of you know. And she is responsible for the work of the units. And we'll get into what the units are. The units are the special areas of practice that we use, or that we do rather. And I'm a supervisor of one of those units. This slide tells you the different areas of law that we deal with. And when we set up this opportunity for me to speak with you, it was suggested that I share with you some stories. About cases that we've done, and I'm very happy to do that, because you know, everybody likes to tell about a success story, and the stories that I'll share with you today, please know that I'm not divulging any identifying information, with the exception of one person who's very happy to be identified, but you'll hear more. So I'm not disclosing anything that's confidential, and it's not all my work. I wish I could take credit for every good story I'm going to tell you today, but it's really the product of a lot of people and different attorneys in the office. I certainly do not have expertise in all of these areas, but we do have people on staff that deal with each one of these things. Let me tell you about our housing unit, because that's I'm most familiar with that. In Immokalee, about, well, I guess it maybe was June or so last year, there was a family living in a mobile home park. Their landlord lived across the street from them, so very close quarters with their landlord. The tenants were suffering because of, you know, COVID slowed down work for everybody. They couldn't pay the rent. The landlord, rather than file an eviction, turned off the electric. That's absolutely illegal in Florida, and it's a terrible stressor for the family. So we did threaten some litigation, and got the electric back on. The landlord's relative filed an eviction against the tenant, so they're getting close to getting better. They filed an eviction, but by the wrong person. We defended that case. We sued the landlord for cutting off the electric, and with the blessing of Governor DeSantis doing the moratorium on evictions last summer, the client was able to kind of delay the inevitable of moving out. Ultimately, the case settled. The client did move, but not till the end of the summer. And in doing so, she was able to avoid what she was suing the landlord for, offset what she owed in rent. So she was able to move without incurring a lot of debt. That was a great success. What we find in housing issues in Immokalee in particular, and when I say Immokalee, I probably should include the other really rural areas, but Immokalee is more populated than some of the Chakaluski and all of that. But they there's an awful lot of tenancies in Immokalee that are not on paper. Now, Florida law says an oral agreement to rent is an oral agreement to rent. It's a lease that's enforceable, even though it's oral. Of course, there's problems with that. Proof is number one. But what often goes along with that is that the tenancies are just month to month or week to week. And in those situations, a landlord doesn't have to really have a reason to make you move. They just have to give you a proper notice. It's like non-renewing the month lease. And what we find, especially in Immokalee, is that there's lots and lots of tenancies that fit into that category. And so especially in this year with COVID, instead of a landlord filing an eviction for non-payment of rent or for anything else, where there would be a defense, the landlord will file the eviction based on terminating a month-to-month tenancy, which if they've got a good notice, there's no defense. So it's kind of a workaround the moratorium on the evictions. And it takes us a great deal of work to kind of work with that to get people, if we can't get them into a repayment plan, or we can't work out an agreed move out date that's convenient for everybody, we try to get them the best that we can to keep them in shelter. because especially in this past year, staying in shelter means more than just having the roof over your head. It means maintaining your health. So it's a big deal when we're able to keep somebody in possession out in Immokalee. What we find in Immokalee too is that there are, and this is just anecdotal, I don't have any statistics to back it up, but it seems that there are more of these illegal evictions than what you find in the city of Naples. And by illegal evictions, I mean things like turning off the electric, changing the locks, throwing the person's stuff out into the yard, that sort of thing. That seems to happen more in Immokalee. And my thinking has been that one of the reasons it occurs more frequently out there is because the community often includes people who might not be documented, so they're worried about making any kind of call to law enforcement or to any other agency, or they're easily bullied by the landlord. You know, the landlord says, I'm going to call so-and-so to come out here and get it and to get you out, and they're successful. So there's some isolation there, some that contributes to that. And one of the things that I'm very grateful to your group is that with the funding that you've provided, we're able to have a paralegal out in Immokalee every week. Now, we have always done cases from Immokalee. And we've always had that Immokalee office. The difference is that the Immokalee office has much fewer staff than what the Naples office does. And the Immokalee office does a great amount of immigration work. And so I think that there's an association between the Immokalee Legal Aid Office and immigration, and people think maybe that they don't do landlord-tenant, you know? So by having a consistent person, I mean, an actual live face that says, Scarlett's going to be there every Wednesday and so we'll still do eviction intakes and cases that come in all the time, but we want to create this consistency so that people know, yeah, the Immokalee office does a lot of immigration, but the Immokalee office also does a lot of housing work. And I'm hoping that will increase not only the flow of cases into us, but also the confidence that we're there to help the people. Now, because I've had cases where out of Immokalee where the client tells me later that the landlord had said, well, what are you going to do? Go to legal aid? They only do immigration, you know? And that it's not true, of course, but we just want to have that same presence. And we do have, we've always had staff that participate in various agency council meetings and things like that out there in Immokalee. And like I said, that office has always been there. If any of you know Sister Maureen Kelleher, who recently retired from our program, that was her bailiwick, and you know, deservedly she established that office as being a great immigration office. But we just want to have a bigger footprint on the housing side. Now, COVID has created an obstacle for us. We have the physical office actually closed. And what's also different between Immokalee and Naples is that Immokalee has a great amount of walk-in traffic. And by closing our doors because of COVID, there's no walk-in traffic. And for whatever reasons, it seems that people in Immokalee are not as comfortable picking up the phone and saying, I want to have an appointment, or I want to do that, you know, because we can do everything by phone, you know, but there's a barrier there. So even though we have this person going out every week, we still haven't seen the full fruits of that because we still have the doors closed. And, you know, I'm hopeful that is not going to be forever. Because, you know, we also have the doors closed in Naples. We have clients come in only when there's no other way that we can do our business, and even then, it's it's an ordeal because we of course want to protect staff, we want to protect the public and that sort of thing. So, so thank you for helping us with Immokalee, and I believe we'll see even better results once we can open the doors. I want to tell you about a great tax case that came out of Immokalee. I think a lot of people don't think of legal aid as handling tax cases because you think, oh, they're poor people. What kind of tax problems can they have? Well, let me tell you, there's a lot apparently. And in Immokalee, this was a few years ago, there was a woman who was offering to help people file their income tax returns. She spoke their language. She was from that client, from the Haitian American client community. And so she spoke the language. She went to their church. She was just very well respected. And, you know, for a modest fee, she would prepare your tax returns. Well, the modest fee was just to make it look legit, because once our client signed off on the tax return, the tax return was altered to show that any refund would be deposited into the preparer's bank account. And she successfully stole the money then from several people in the Haitian community. And through our tax attorney working with the IRS, that stopped, and we got the money back, or got money reissued to the clients. I'm not sure what happened with the notario who was preparing the things, but it was just such a terrible scam and such a betrayal of the trust of the people that she was dealing with. I also want to tell you about an identity case. This is one of the areas that we deal with that kind of slips through the cracks. It doesn't fit under anything else, and yet it's so key to almost everything else. I had a gentleman in his late 60s who needed to get his driver's license. He had a driver's license, but it expired. And so to get a new driver's license, he had to meet all of the post 9/11 requirements of producing a birth certificate and this and that, and he had none of it. So he couldn't get a driver's license. He didn't have a social security card, and so he couldn't work, couldn't do anything. The only identification he had was was the expired driver's license, and a card a jail identification card from when he was released from prison. So needed to get all this stuff, and he was entitled to also get disability benefits. So we worked with him to get the documents he needed to establish his identity. And in the process, he learned a whole lot about himself. He was, I say, in his 60s, and he didn't know his parents. When he was a very young child, he was put into foster care. He ran away from foster care as a very young child and literally couch surfed in a college town up north. And then he became an adult, got into some trouble. He was in prison for a while. So didn't know the names of his parents. He knew he was born in Michigan, and that was about it. Didn't know what school he had gone to because he never graduated, of course. He was just an orphan at a very young age. In any case, in the process of tracking down all of this stuff, we learned that he was actually from somewhere, it was a state in New England, and I forget which one, whether it was New Hampshire or Maine, but he was from New England. We had the names of both his parents, and what he thought was his middle name was not his middle name. And like I said, I'm changing the name here, but instead of it being Sylvester, it was Sheldon. So here is the 67-year-old man learning for the first time that his middle name is Sheldon. So we went to court, we presented all this stuff, and got an order from the circuit court that required the state of Florida to issue a birth certificate to this gentleman. And with that, he was able to get a social security card, a driver's license, the whole works. He had a brand new personhood. When he got his paper, when he got his order from the court, I said, "Happy birthday. This is a great day, you know, happy birthday." And just the thing that he made a little ribbon on the package is that when he got his social security number, some of the digits are 007, like James Bond. I said, "See, you've been a mystery all your life, and now it's proof." Small business development is also an area I think people don't think of for legal aid very often. And this is the one that your group asked specifically to hear about. And I'm going to tell you about Janice Johnson, the sassy sauce, the garlic boss. Janice is an absolute inspiration to me personally, because she is a person who is transforming her life tremendously. She first came to legal aid with some legal problem that we helped her with, and in the process of dealing with that, you know, you get to know a person, and she was the hairdresser. She worked in a salon, and she said, "Oh, you know, if you ever, you know, want to have something good to eat, I'll make you some crabs with garlic sauce." And it turns out, you know, she's been making this sauce for a number of years for family and friends, and she would sometimes sell it to friends or whatever, but it was, you know, just something that she would cook up on her stove. We have an attorney on staff who is committed to doing small business development. She met with Janice, helped Janice develop the business of this. And so Sassy Sauce, the Garlic Boss, is a product now. Janice uses an accelerator kitchen out in Immokalee to base her operations, and she now produces Sassy Sauce. And I gotta tell you, I'm going to give a little commercial for her here. It is great sauce. It's great sauce. I talked with her today, and I said, "I'm going to do a presentation, and they wanted to hear about you in particular." And she said, "Oh, good. And you can buy her product at Wynn's in Naples. It's down at, in Marco Island. She sells it also at a restaurant out on Matt Lachey. She sells it through a restaurant in Kentucky even. So she's on the web. It's Sassy Sauce, the Garlic Boss. And what has happened in her life is that, you know, she goes from being, a barely minimum wage salon worker to starting her own business, and she is just going gangbusters. She will sometimes show up at fairs and things like that. She sets up a booth. She has the grill, all that sort of thing. She is on that path to great success. And I've got to say, from my knowing her from the very beginning to where she is now, you also see what it is for somebody to grow and to blossom into who they were really meant to be. And it's very exciting to see her. She's been on the news, all that. I'm not sure how anybody can avoid seeing Janice Johnson, but it's she's doing it. She's a great person. For veterans, I'll tell you this case that we had, because it's a good example of how, although we have these different areas listed here, we really try to work together. We try to do a holistic approach to representing someone. If somebody comes in to see me about an eviction, we ask questions to see if they're having problems with getting their food stamps, with, you know, anything else that might be going on. And in this case, we had a couple of different attorneys working together to help this gentleman. The man was a veteran of the Vietnam War, or is a veteran of the Vietnam War. He's 100% disabled now. And because of his disability, he is not able to leave his house. Even to go for a doctor's appointment, it involves getting an ambulance to take him. He's just totally housebound. He has some home health care that comes once a day, does some necessities and that sort of thing. But he had a reverse mortgage on his house. And he made the mistake, which a lot of people with reverse mortgages do, unfortunately, which is that he failed to keep up the insurance on the property. Sometimes when people get a reverse mortgage, they forget that they have to also pay for insurance and taxes on their own. It's no longer something that goes into an escrow. So in his case, he had bought insurance, but he had bought only flood insurance and not homeowners insurance. And so a foreclosure was filed. In defending the foreclosure, we did some discovery and found out that, yeah, you know, that the plaintiff is right. You know, he did not maintain the right insurance. But at that point, for him to cure the problem required a great deal of money. The person in our office who handles veterans cases got involved and was able to intercede on his behalf with the Veterans Administration, upgrade the gentleman's discharge, which meant that he got a large back pay amount. And with that large back pay amount, he paid the arrearage owed on the mortgage, and the house was saved. So that was a tremendously successful story, because it kept a very a great guy in his house who, I don't know what he would have done if he had to have been made to move. We just started doing guardian advocacy cases. Those are cases where individuals with children with disabilities age out of their minority. So a child who has some intellectual disability, let's say, turns 18. Unless there's some court order to the contrary, they're as much an adult and a citizen entitled to all rights and privileges as you or I. The problem, of course, is that the disability may make them vulnerable to all kinds of mischief and scams and things like, and violence even. So a guardian advocacy is specifically designed in Florida law to allow usually a parent be named the guardian of the child upon the child's 18th birthday. And it's a blessing to parents of those children, because it allows for some protection for their child. We've just started doing those, and I say just, I think like within the last 6 months, and we've been very happy that we've been able to help people with it. The Collier County does have a set of forms that people can do it on their own without an attorney, but quite frankly, it's hard. So we're happy to do that with people. Education cases are generally ones where a child has some special need, and they need an advocate to get the school system to provide the special services that might be needed. We have an attorney on staff who does individualized education plans representing the child and the parent as they meet with the school board. And we've been very pleased with that. Those cases come up out of, well, all parts of the county. It's all parts of the county. I'm gonna move on just because I want to be sure, but certainly any questions that you have on any of these categories, we can come back to. These are the things that we don't do at Legal Aid. We don't do criminal cases. We don't do slip and fall. The slip and fall cases, there's a million attorneys out there ready and willing, happy to do personal injury cases. And if it's a good case, they don't usually require funds up front. So we're not needed for slip and fall cases. Probate is something we just haven't been able to develop an expertise in that. And quite frankly, most of our clientele does not have a need for probate. Although I'm starting to change my mind on that a little bit. We have lots of people who, you know, it's not a big estate that's not a big estate to be handled, but it's nonetheless a couple $1,000s that's stuck in a bank account, and there needs to be a probate. And for that, we're lucky that we have the private bar. The Collier County Bar will sometimes take cases that we don't handle in-house. So for instance, on the probate issue, I had a client who had a reverse mortgage. She and her husband owned the house, but to get the reverse mortgage, they deeded the house to him only, and then the mortgage was in his name only. This is or was a common practice with that industry, because my client, the wife, did not have good credit. So to make the deal most appealing, they put the property all in his name. So like I say, not uncommon. But then the husband dies. And so now the wife is not on the deed. She's not on the mortgage. Nobody has to deal with her whatsoever in terms of like dealing with the property and the mortgage. To get the property into her name, we needed to have a probate done. There were several children from the family, and I said, we don't do probate, but we called upon somebody in the private bar who had agreed to take the case on without charging a fee. That attorney did the probate for the estate, ended up getting the property in my client's name alone, and then I was able to negotiate with the loan servicer to make everything go smoothly into her name, and she continues to live there. So the private bar does a great number of pro bono cases that we can't handle or don't handle in-house, and we're very grateful to them. They also participate in various clinics. We every once in a while we will set up a clinic on a particular issue, like domestic violence or divorce. We've had clinics on bankruptcy and on tax issues, and the private bar comes forward, and it's set up as or used to be set up as a thing where people would come into our building, go into the community room, sit down with the attorney for 15, 20 minutes and get some advice that way. And so we've been very happy with that. Now, COVID has changed the way we do that, and we're doing things more virtually, but we're still trying to do that. Wills for Heroes is a project that we coordinate, but it's staffed by private attorneys out in the field. We don't typically do last wills and testament in-house. It's just not a priority for us, but there certainly is a demand for them. So Wills for Heroes, I think we do that twice a year. I know it's certainly, we do it in the fall. I think we do it sometime late spring too, but it's for veterans, members of veterans families, first responders, those people. If they fit into those categories, we have somebody that will meet with them, write the will up on the spot, and get it done. So so we're very fortunate in Collier County to have a bar that volunteers with us frequently. Many of the members of our board of directors are attorneys locally, and they really put in a lot of time. And I got to tell you, having worked in other counties, that's not true of everywhere else. Collier County is, I think, rather unique in this area. If I had to describe what we do at Legal Aid, every case that we do fits somehow into this circle. We can't do everything. As big as we are, we can't cover everything, but we try to hit the things that we think are the greatest priority. And that's these things: housing and income, food security, being safe, having access to healthcare. These are the top things that we aim for. So things like, you know, my neighbor's saying bad things about me, and I want, slander. It's not that we don't care, but we don't care. It's what it comes down to, because it's not as essential as these things. If we could successfully meet all of these needs, wouldn't that be a great world, So this is my little, I guess, philosophy page here. I'm in this business because I really believe in social justice. And I believe that that means that every person has the ability to voice their needs and concerns and to have access to those things the same as everybody else. And I think that until everybody has that level of access and power, I don't think any of us do. You know, the bumper sticker of, you know, there's, if I'm going to get it wrong, there's no justice for all if there's not justice for one. I really believe it's true. And this is not an official position of legal aid. This is Cathy Lucrezi's theory of life. And I just share that for the little bit that it's worth. So thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm happy this is being recorded. You can always find us on the web. Look for Legal Aid Collier County. And I hope I've left time, and I hope there are questions that we can talk about. We are blessed to be the beneficiaries of many grants, including your group, and I want to officially say thank you for all of that. I appreciate it very much. I'm going to take us off the share screen,
Okay.
and we can have some questions.
All right.
There we go.
Okay, I do have some questions in the Q&A. If you have one and you haven't put it in, then go ahead and type it in. I'm just, for anyone who's listening who's not familiar with the assistance that the church has provided, let me just say very briefly that the Board of Mission and Outreach, BOMO, of our church this year decided to target their support in the community, the mission dollars, and specifically focused on groups that were helping community members in the midst of the pandemic and trying to increase, well, I'm not on the board, so I don't want to put the words in, but increase resilience. And what was provided to Legal Aid Service, as I understand, was funding to support the paralegal that Cathy mentioned. And one of the questions actually is, what is the paralegal able to do during the day each week when she goes to Immokalee, even though your office is closed? So maybe you can say a little more about how the funds help that and how she's able to work in this pandemic with closed offices.
Thanks. It's not the way that we had imagined it, of course. Because we rely so much on walk-in clients. But what we're able to do is we've established that, you know, every Wednesday, there's the housing person at Legal Aid in Immokalee. Every Wednesday. And with that, she will field phone calls. If she's not doing an intake on a particular housing case, she is doing other general work for that Immokalee office, the reception and that sort of thing. So even though the doors are closed, we're still doing, we call it intake. You know, we get the person on the phone, we ask the questions, determine eligibility, all that sort of stuff. What she's doing that is specific to housing is, like I say, establishing this footprint, but also to the extent that I have Immokalee housing clients, I can say, go on Wednesday, talk to a Scarlett, you know, she's going to have the paper for you to sign, you know, take the paper to a Scarlett on Wednesday. And it's part of that process of establishing, you know, we do housing in Immokalee. So when she's there on Wednesdays, even though the door is closed, she's still doing housing work. For instance, she and I have an appointment set up for this Wednesday to meet with a client. This is somebody that we're arranging to have come into the office because of what we need to get done, but I'm going to be appearing by Zoom. So Scarlett is there to, I guess, be the ringmaster of the appointment, and I'm by Zoom. What we used to do, it's not too different than what we used to do, except it's now uniform or consistent rather. every Wednesday, every Wednesday. Before we had this in place, I would have to take a day to go out to Immokalee to meet with the client myself. And that's not very efficient. And it was a scheduling nightmare because I can't go every day kind of thing. But she's juggling all that for us. And what our hope is that once the doors are open, then all that walk-in traffic will know, hey, it's Wednesday, the housing person is there. Like I say, if somebody comes in on Monday or Tuesday, we're still going to talk to them about housing. It's just, we want that footprint to be there and let them know that we're there to help them.
Well, and I know that we were very glad to be able to help in that way. I have a question about, do you deal at all with the Collier County schools to help make sure that there are bilingual teachers or some kind of assistance to people or to students who are not, and I guess parents who are not English first language,
Right.
who are English language learners, they're not English language speakers?
I don't know if we have anything happening right now with that. I know that about 2 years ago, we were involved in working with the school system to be sure that students who did not have English as a language were not shuffled into one particular school or category. In other words, there was, at that time anyway, there was some tendency that if you didn't speak English or you didn't speak English well, you went to, classroom 2B or something like that. And so what that was creating was this small subgroup of, separate students who should have been mainstreamed into the thing. So I know that we dealt with that issue and resolved it so that nobody was getting the short end of the stick there. In the context of the special education situations, I know we've dealt with language, but I think overall, I have to say, I don't think we have anything going on right now to work with the school systems about being sure that people who have English as a second language have access. There's been a great deal of questions or issues that have come up this past year about access through the internet and things like that. And we've had, or our education unit has had some input on trying to improve that, not in a formal way, but they've talked with them about, creating hotspots or creating better access. Mm-hmm. One of the cases out of Immokalee, it was a single mom. Well, actually, she wasn't single, but the husband was long gone. But single mom, 4 kids. The mom and 2 of the children were disabled. The children's ages ranged from 3 to 14. And the 14-year-old and the next oldest child spoke English, but everybody else spoke not Spanish, but a dialect of a Mexican Indian language. So they were, talk about isolated. They were isolated geographically, socially, everything against them. And in that situation with COVID, as the school shut down, the responsibility of schooling the kids fell upon the 14-year-old, and it was a disaster. So we were able to get some additional help for that family, and quite frankly, that solution was more of we were lucky to find some social workers able to jump in and provide some services that weren't otherwise available. And we established some public benefits for the family. So they were getting some Social Security disability on at least two of the 3 people in the household that were disabled. We also were able to kind of educate the family as to what was available for food pantry services and things like that. But, that's somebody that's just totally under the radar and yet so in need of help. It was nice to be able to help that person. And so that's a long way for me to answer. I don't think we're doing anything. We're not doing enough to deal with the English as second language. And that perhaps is mostly just a priority issue.
Yeah. I have I'm going to try to get two categories of questions in before we're done. One category has specifically to do with housing, your specialty, and two questions related to housing. You may put it together. What is the average monthly rent in the trailer courts and the average monthly income in Immokalee? So some information about what is the status there. And then specifically, another person said that it's her understanding there are a number of people that if they complain to the landlord about things like black mold, the landlord will evict them so that they just are silent about it. So if you can speak to those housing issues, and then I have one other category of question after that.
I wish I knew the statistics about what the typical income is, what the typical rent is. What's true of all of Collier County is there's very little affordable housing. What's especially true in the rural areas is there's very, very little affordable, decent housing. So what happens often is that someone will rent a place that is absolutely substandard, but it's all that the person can afford. And it's also why I think there's a lot of week-to-week and month-to-month tenancies. It's all that people can afford. I've seen rents out in Immokalee for the trailer park example that I gave about the people who couldn't pay the rent. Their rent was $800, and they were renting the lot and the trailer. They did not own the trailer. So $800, and that's about as low as it goes. I did speak with a gentleman who said that his rent was $400 a month. And I said, that's got to be a closet somewhere. And he said, well, yeah, pretty much. What people do to make things affordable is they'll rent a room in a house. And that has its own set of problems, but it can be like the only affordable thing available. And then as for the mold part of the question, this is the great conundrum, I think, in housing for poor people. Absolutely, people should have decent, safe, and sanitary housing. Those are the magic words that HUD always uses: decent, safe, and sanitary. But you got to have a roof over your head too. So if you complain, and it's a good, let's say it's a good landlord who says, "Oh yeah, you're right, there's mold. Let me take care of it. Get out so I can fix everything." You know, that's not the solution that the tenant wants. So does the tenant complain about things being subcode, or do they tolerate it and at least have the roof over their head? And that's always been a tension in legal aid and legal services programs around the country, is how much do you push for repairs to be done versus how content should you be that you at least have a place? When I talk with tenants, you know, they make the decision where they draw the line, but the risk of complaining always is that the landlord can take some steps to end the tenancy. Florida law does make it unlawful for the landlord to retaliate because you complain about the need for repairs. But if all you have is this month-to-month oral tenancy, that retaliation defense does not go very far. I got to tell you, it's something that looks good on paper, but it doesn't work so well in the practical world. Yeah. I'm always torn about the conditions issues, because I know that once you start to stir up trouble on conditions issues, then there's a whole lot of other issues that come out, and too often, for all practical purposes, it's the tenant who is on the losing end of that.
Yeah. Well, I actually now have three questions that all fall in the same category, which is, what can we do? And specifically, are there ways that people can volunteer and help and make a difference, even if they're not lawyers? So are there things that non-lawyers can do to be helpful and to make a difference with legal aid?
We, for non-lawyers, there's often opportunities to help with the non-lawyer kinds of things. Like when we have these clinics, sometimes we might need a volunteer to help do some of the kind of clerical things of moving people through the system and that sort of thing. When we have events, we did I always forget what it's called, but it's basically Santa, toys for Santa or whatever. We call upon a lot of volunteers out in the community. So they're kind of, for non-lawyers, it tends to be event-driven volunteering. We do have attorneys that have volunteered in the past. Right now, that system's not working so well, partly because of COVID, and we don't have people coming into the office as we normally do, but also because we're heading into summer, and we enjoy a wealth of interns and law students who come in and volunteer their time. But to the extent that there's people with legal experience who don't mind doing some of, I want to say, the little work that they probably did when they were first out of law school, things like drafting powers of attorney and that sort of stuff, then yeah, we do it on a case-by-case basis. Whenever we have somebody volunteer at that level, though, we treat it like an employee. We do an interview. We want the person to commit to, a schedule and that sort of thing. But right now, in the immediate thing, we don't have a need for that because, like I said, we have this wealth of interns that are coming our way.
And I'm just curious, for that, for a person who is an attorney, would they have to be licensed in Florida?
No.
Okay.
If Florida has a system of, and I forget the title of it, but we had one attorney who was certified emeritus attorney from New Jersey. And as long as he was supervised by a Florida licensed attorney, he could practice. When we've had people that weren't certified under the Florida bar program, we still had them volunteer, but they were always supervised, and they couldn't actually practice in front of a court or an administrative law judge.
Right. All right. I think that we are at our time. And I want, on behalf of that audience that laughed at your jokes and enjoyed your stories, I want to thank you very much for all that you have helped us to learn about legal aid. And I certainly learned a lot. And I thank you for your time tonight, but I also thank you and all of the people who make up Legal Aid Service of Collier County for what they are doing for the people of our community. And as we've said, this is a program sponsored by the Justice Committee because we're about trying to figure out how to make our community more just for all people. And we know that the work that you're doing is part of that. So we thank you, and we thank you for your time and your work. And we hope that we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. If I could do one footnote, I see in the questions about nonprofit agencies, going back to the story of Janice Johnson and our small business attorney, that unit also works with nonprofit organizations doing transactional legal work. I know that attorney has helped a nonprofit that is setting up affordable housing for low-income people in Naples. So she not only helps individuals get their own small businesses going, but she also works with nonprofits that are small and that need some legal assistance. So with that, I close. And again, thank you for not only for the grant, but for the work you do as well. And I appreciate this opportunity. I encourage you to get in touch with us. Anybody that you think needs our help or might want our help, tell them to call and we'll figure something out.
All right. And I want to thank our viewers too. We're glad that you were here, and we want you to know that the Justice Committee will continue to sponsor programs in the future, and we hope that you will join us again. So thank you, everyone. I guess I'm officially the host, so I'm officially going to end this, but good evening. Stay safe to all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.